New York, and we need to make sure that we're meeting them where they are and that they have the resources that they need to receive the services that they should have access to, like everybody else. So I just wanted to say that at first, and thank you all for the work that you do, because I know it's not easy. So with that, though, I had a few questions around the New York City ATWORK program. If you could just go through really briefly the eligibility requirements as well as the process for enrolling in the program, and also how to ensure that the application process is accessible.
Sure. So we primarily focus on working with individuals who are job ready. Those are individuals with a documented disability. They must be New York City residents. They must be eligible to work in the United States. We expect that job seekers come to us with an understanding of the kind of work they are looking for and eligible for. They must have a resume that they can edit themselves with or without additional assistance. And to be able to perform an independent job search, again, with or without additional assistance. And kind of have a basic understanding of what the job market is like and how that matches with the kind of work that they're looking for. Individuals are referred to us in a number of ways. Generally speaking, they will either come to us looking for a broad amount of support and guidance in their job search, generally not connected to other services, or looking for something more substantial. Additionally, people may come to us because of a specific position that we have available through one of our employer partners. Those are often referred to us by other providers or the state vocational rehabilitation agency. But again, either way could be both. Candidates who are being referred for specific positions will be considered whether they are a match for the position, and if their materials demonstrate that. And if that's the case, then they'll be referred to the employer. If somebody's looking for us for more general ongoing support, they will likely be placed on a wait list because of our staff capacity. And that can be for a period of time until we're able to take them on to consider their candidacy. We have an online job board, which is most of the way that people come to us, but we accept referrals by email. And at the Workforce One Center, we also have walk-in or roll-in meetings and introductions.
Awesome. You basically just answered like my next 2-3 questions, so it's perfect. I know that you said that the wait list can sometimes be substantial, but do you know what the average time is for folks on the wait list?
Generally 6 to 8 weeks. We work really hard not to have it extend past 8 weeks.
That's actually not bad, considering that applying for jobs in general, at least at the city, it takes quite a while. So that's actually pretty good. Oh, and we've been joined by Councilmember Abreu. And then in terms of the partner organizations that you work with to place folks in employment, could you go through the types of organizations, how many organizations, and what sectors that includes? I know you touched upon it, but I wanted to.
Sure. One of our lead employer partners or sectors is the City of New York. We work with a wide variety of agencies and a wide variety of opportunities, connecting individuals to both competitive and non-competitive roles, and that certainly is a broad range of types of roles. We work with employers in the arts, in health and human services, tech, and we respond to outreach. When employers want to work with us, we want to work with them regardless of falling within a specific sector.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is because I know that, because I come from more of the nonprofit sector background, and so I know that a lot of them would also benefit from having the connections with this program to their employment opportunities. And so just wanting to know how many approximately how many nonprofit groups you partner with? Are there certain umbrella organizations that you work with as well in the community?
Do you mean as employer partners or just general partnerships?
Just general partnerships, yes.
Sure, absolutely. We work with some of the state entities, Access VR, which is the state's vocational rehabilitation agency. We work with the New York State Commission for the Blind, the New York State Workers' Compensation Board, and we work with 30, 60 or so, I think, nonprofit partners across the city, some of which are organizations that work specifically with individuals with disabilities, some that are specifically workforce development. We work with a lot of educational institutions as well, from the high school level through college.
That's good to know. And we've been joined by Councilmember Caban. And I know that you spoke in your testimony briefly also about, and we all know that there's interesting nuances and complications with city versus state legislation and laws, right? And who has oversight over what. And so I know that you had mentioned that the approval times are outside of your control and still create delays. So I just wanted to know more specifically if you could give an example.
Sure. So the 55A program is a part of New York State civil service law that allows qualified New Yorkers with disabilities to be onboarded for competitive positions without taking a civil service exam. And it's really beneficial both to agencies and to job seekers. There is an approval process for each application that requires coordination between the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, the hiring agency, state, at least one state entity, and that coordination can take a long time. Our office is helping to facilitate that communication so that it can move a little bit more quickly. That happens simultaneously with approval for that person's onboarding. It can happen simultaneously. Sometimes it does not. And so that can result in somebody who maybe have 55A approval but not be clear to start their job, or vice versa. And most agencies would prefer for both of those pieces to be approved together, from my understanding, so that onboarded employees have the most job protection as possible when they're starting.
Okay. And is that wait time usually longer for those that are trying to get onboarded through the 55A program?
From my understanding, it can be, but I don't know exactly.
Okay. And I know that the staffing, and going back to the budget for a second, I know that the staffing has been challenging because you are a team of 6, as you said. So ideally speaking, to meet the number of folks that are either on the wait list or interest in the program, as well as folks to be able to go into the community and do outreach, how many staffing would you say is necessary, and the budget amount, if you could put a ballpark figure?
I would defer to my colleague Sarah regarding the budget, or we'd need to look into that. But I think a number of staff, ideally at least another 5 to 7 people would be, I think, appropriate.
Okay, and that would be enough to support the current wait list as well as to do more outreach and then absorb more applications, correct?
Yes, and I also think that a piece of it is expanding our business outreach and development, because we can bring in more, we can increase the capacity of the career services team to bring on and advise job seekers, but without that working in coordination with expanded business development, we wouldn't have more job opportunities to be able to connect people to.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to pause for a second because I do want my colleagues to ask questions on their bills, and then I'll come back and circle with more questions. And so I'm going to first toss it over to Councilmember Dinowitz to ask questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start by saying, first, I 100% agree that your staff should be bigger and your budget should be bigger. I mean, it's almost astounding the amount of work you do and the importance of your work as well. With, is it six people? I think my staff is bigger than 6 people. It's amazing. And I mean, the importance of your work, I think we all know, but I like to share for the non-disabled community that your work and the work for the disabled community often pays dividends to people who don't consider themselves as having a disability, whether it's like when I had my twin boys and I was lugging around a giant stroller, I was very grateful for all the years of work people in the disabled community did to get ramps throughout my community. Right. And that's just one little element, the elevators at train stations, and those are just for visible disabilities. But today, I'm here to talk about my Bill 163, and I want to thank you for your recommendations. To clarify, yes, the point is even PDFs that are online that are meant to be printed out are to be considered. And in fact, many of the documents that I showed during my introduction were printed out. But importantly, I appreciate the recommendation because those are the documents that our offices print out or that we are pointed to when agencies direct us somewhere, and we print them out for our constituents. And as I mentioned, things like the font size, the serifs, the contrast, the color contrast, in many cases are not accessible. But you are the experts in this. And I'm wondering what steps your agency currently takes to make print accessible to people with disabilities throughout not just your agency, but with other agencies.
So as you know, this committee championed the council enacted local law 12 of 2023, which we greatly appreciate, which required every agency to develop 5-year accessibility plans. So MOPD has been working very hard with city agencies, and those plans address all elements of accessibility. So we have provided trainings about, it's usually in the context of when we do trainings on digital accessibility. We do there are some aspects of that where we do provide guidance on print documents, and we have an accessible events guide, and in there is information about print documents as well. So it's incorporated in a lot of our guidance, but it would certainly be helpful to have actual, an official city standard that's backed up by a local law would be helpful, as was the local law 12, which was extremely helpful.
Yeah, there's a difference between best practice and then, a requirement for agencies to do best practices. What a kind chair. And just in terms of this training, is this every city agency that is trained and they're required to be trained? Or are there still agencies that or members of agencies that have not undergone this training?
I would have to get back to you on that. I mean, we definitely have offered the training to all city agencies. I would have to get back to you on that.
Yes, and just again, that distinction between creating the availability of something and then the requirement that it be done. I mean, it's wonderful that you do that work. It's wonderful that that law has been passed, but it needs to help a lot more people. And the way to do that is to make sure the agencies are required to do that training, but more importantly, that there are these codified best practices that agencies are required to comply by. And just lastly, is there any other feedback that you've received from community members with disabilities about the accessibility or usefulness of printed materials?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any. So it's not an issue that we hear about a lot, but it doesn't surprise me.
It's an issue I hear about a lot. But again, your work pays dividends to other communities, and I would just add, I often hear about it from older adults who throughout their entire lives have not had a disability, and then suddenly they have visual impairment, and suddenly they realize, man, like I wish these laws were in place. I wish your budget were larger so that you could have engaged in more of those work, because that's a reality of having a disability or not currently having a disability. You don't know when you're going to have at any point in your life a disability. So we should really always be preparing for that to make sure we're engaging every member of our community now to make sure we don't have to worry about it in the future. Madam Chair, Moped, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your support of this legislation.
Thank you so much. Actually, so we had an intern from Visions join our team a couple years ago, and one of the things that I learned also, and I think this is why it's so great to have interns as well as staff who have disabilities, is because we learned, or I learned, that when you're posting a social media post online, whether you do it as a JPEG versus a PDF makes a huge difference for someone who's blind, and so things like that, little things like that really make a big difference and matter in terms of making sure that everything is becoming accessible. So I really, wanted to thank you for this bill, Chair, Councilmember Tano.
I'm chair of something.
You're chair of something, yes. And I want to recognize we've been joined by Councilmember Lewis as well as Councilmember Hanif. Okay, and let me just turn over really quickly. Are you? Okay. To Councilmember Marte to ask questions, and then I'll circle back at the.
Thank you, Chair. I forgot to say this in my opening, but I'm a brown man with a navy suit, brown curly hair, and wearing a white shirt and a blue tie. Just a few quick questions. Does your office support the goals of my bill, Intro 1307, which will establish a film, television, and theater accessibility fund to promote inclusionary hiring?
We certainly support the goal of promoting inclusive hiring in any industry, but defer to MOM on the details of that bill.
And from your personal experience, have you worked with MOM in this industry specifically to promote or work with private partners to help facilitate the hiring of people with disabilities?
We have not partnered with MOM.
Have you partnered with other agencies in a similar matter for potentially like a similar agency? It doesn't have to be production. And how do you work with other agencies to make that happen?
Councilmember, I'm hoping I'm understanding your question correctly. There are some agencies who I think as a result of the 5-year accessibility plan and the increased hiring of individuals with disabilities across the city have realized the benefit of extending this idea or inclusivity and accessibility in all of their programs as well. So there are, I can think of at least 2 agencies offhand that have reached out to us to help them ensure that their workforce development programs are more, and other partnerships are more accessible and inclusive. We work with many agencies and units to partner with for helping them fulfill their hiring needs. And that, the type of partnership and the type of roles, really vary depending on the agency.
Okay. No, I thank you for being here. I'm disappointed that MOM is not here and MOM hasn't reached out specifically to this topic. It's really concerning, and it's something that we'll follow up after this hearing with them to make sure that they proactively start doing this, and hopefully we could get this bill to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've also been joined by Councilmember Botcher. And just shifting back over to the ATWORK program, because one of the things that I remember we looked at was, well, actually, before I go into that question, can you describe the disability etiquette and awareness training offered to local businesses and government agencies?
Absolutely. The disability etiquette and awareness training is run by the NYC ATWORK team and includes members of our office who have lived experience with disability. They provide about an hour to an hour and a half training that gives an overview of an understanding of disability, some of the history of disability rights. They also review some specific disabilities and what that may mean in terms of accommodations or how to interact with those individuals. It's a really safe space. The intention is to create a baseline of understanding and ensure that there's a place to ask questions regardless of what they are. We've also started to tailor them depending on the audience or the intention of the training. So for example, we always offer that in advance of a hiring event, and we've incorporated some very specific like interaction examples to play out how in a setting of like a job fair, that individual with a disability would, can, if something happens, that how that person can handle it and feel comfortable and confident, like the example that I use is that individual with limited dexterity drops a bunch of papers in front of you. What do? Do you stare at them? Do you turn away? Do you help them out? Do you offer to help them out? And helping the audience kind of understand in the moment what the most appropriate way to respond is. And then we often follow those up with more specific trainings or technical assistance.
Okay. No, and that's a very good example of what would or could happen and how to handle it. So thank you. And does the program conduct follow-ups with participants after they've secured employment, and for how long? Because I know at my former nonprofit, when we had workforce training programs, once they secured a job, we followed with them maybe 6 months, 1 year, 2 years out, even after they received employment. So just wanted to know if you could speak to that.
Sure. We provide retention support and services for about a year following employment. Depending on the individual, that may fluctuate a little bit, but our standard is for 1 year. And if somebody after that point is looking for employment again, we would reconsider enrollment as well.
Okay, thank you. And then are there barriers that you've identified that prevent participants from securing or keeping jobs? And so when you go through that process, what are like the top few reasons that you've seen?
That's a good question. I think sometimes there are reasons why it may not work out because it's ultimately not the right job match, and that's true for an individual with or without a disability. Sometimes a person may have something related to their disability that causes them to resign. Sometimes there have been situations where an individual has the hard skills and competencies to succeed in the job, but the office culture or environment is not a good fit, or they may struggle with the kind of soft skills and kind of like underlying components of a workplace culture. That's not uncommon among individuals who are neurodiverse. Sometimes it's that the skills required for the job ultimately is something that the individual doesn't have and is not able to be trained on. Although in all of those examples, when either an employer or the job seeker or both will reach out to us, we'll work with them to try to do what we can to advise them and address whatever that challenge may be.
Okay, yeah, that was actually going to be my next follow-up question. So if it's not something that is, if it's something that has to do with the organization itself and the culture of the organization, and that feedback comes back to you, then at that point, would you do another training, or what are the steps that you would take after that?
It may warrant a broader training. It could be something that's more one-on-one technical assistance with that employer. So working with them to make environmental changes. It may be working with the individual so that they can navigate the existing culture or environment. It may be assisting that job seeker with requesting a reasonable accommodation that will make the workplace more appropriate for them. We work closely with Access VR because they have a little bit more capacity to handle some of those challenges from a resource perspective. And so that's a piece of it too.
Okay. And once participants are enrolled at the ATWORK program, they conduct their own job searches with support from relationship managers. And so can you describe the role of the managers and how they assist participants?
Sure. So the career advisors will help the candidates identify positions that they're a fit for. If the person refers themselves for a position that we're recruiting for at a given time, they'll make sure that that person is actually a fit for the position. They'll collaborate on application materials. The career advisors will share opportunities for workshops or trainings that are part of our office or partners that they think would be appropriate for that individual. They provide a lot of support and guidance when it comes to preparing for an interview, navigating an offer, navigating onboarding, and as I mentioned, retention. Some of that may include reasonable accommodation and disclosure. Some of that may include a 55A application. And then all of the weird and surprising things that come up as part of a job search. they're available to at least hear out and try to provide direction on. They are also provide guidance on what happens if the individual is receiving benefits and what will happen to those benefits when they start working.
Sorry, that's good. So there is some case management built into that.
Yes, I mean, I think that the real intention and role of the career advisors is to provide guidance and support. But there are certainly needs that may come up where either we will try to address that or connect that person with a more appropriate resource to address that.
And I know that, you partner with a bunch of city agencies and nonprofit organizations as well as for-profit. And so just wondering how you are increasing the visibility and awareness given the budget constraints that you all have. And so do you all ask them if they have events to blast out your information, or how have you guys approached it?
We try to say yes to everything. We go to a lot of community engagement events, job fairs, resource fairs, and not only provide resources to attendees, but also take time to meet with other attendees. We do ask for introductions through our partners if there's other organizations that they want us to be introduced to. We often have multiple team members at multiple events at the same time. Those are usually the only times that we say no, is when we're all somewhere else already.
Got it. And then how do you collect and use participant feedback to improve the program? Is there like a review usually once they finished?
Sure. Generally, after somebody starts work, there's kind of more qualitative communication between the relationship manager and the job seeker. If somebody decides not to continue participating in the program, if they're willing to speak with us about why that may be, that's helpful feedback. We have a survey process that we utilize as part of our recruitment events, because that is the way we find that we're able to get the most consistent and reliable feedback, because as soon as people leave an event, they're willing to share that. And that feedback is for both employer partners and job seekers. And it's understanding the general event experience, but also for both did they feel prepared for the event? Did they feel like the jobs they were being recommended to apply for, interview for, were a fit for their skills and goals, and things like that, and then asking the similar questions to employers too.
That's good. And then also, what data metrics or other measures are used to evaluate the effectiveness of the program and its implementation? And does the program collect data on job retention long-term, which I think you sort of touched upon before? And if so, can you share the most recent data available?
So our program in its pilot phase was using a database that was pretty rudimentary, developed by the Mayor's Office of Operations at a time when our program was in its pilot phase, and we didn't necessarily know exactly the kind of information we were going to need to collect. Earlier this year, our team transitioned over to utilizing the WorkSource One database that SBS manages, and so we're still figuring out the best ways to analyze some of that more long-term data.
Wait, did you say WorkSource or Workforce One?
It's
WorkSource.
WorkSource One is the name of the database.
WorkSource One. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to make sure.
Used by the Workforce One.
Right. Okay.
Yes. I think it's their
okay.
little play on words.
Okay. And the WorkSource One collects what type of metrics usually?
I don't know offhand. I'd have to look into it.
Okay. Yeah. If you can let us know, that would be great. Okay, I'm gonna pause there for a sec and have my colleagues ask questions. So Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you, and good morning. I'd like to first just thank you all for the work that you're doing, especially at a time when people, New Yorkers with disabilities, are being targeted by our federal administration. And I know that you all are a small but mighty team, and I thank you for that. So I'd like to know, since the program's inception, how many total individuals have been hired to full-time positions, and part-time, paid internships, or apprenticeships?
The vast majority of the job seekers who we've connected to employment have been connected to full-time employment.
Do you mind bringing the mic a little closer?
most people come to us are looking for full-time employment, and we prioritize employer partnerships where the employers are generally looking for to fill full-time roles. We do have a number of opportunities for internships to be able to connect people to opportunities to build more skills and experiences to be able to be better qualified for full-time positions as well.
What's like the number or range you all have?
So since 2023 to present, we've connected about 120 people to employment, and I would say about 80% is full-time.
And is that a goal that you are trying to achieve, or is that like, can you share like if 100 or so folks being connected to full-time jobs is?
Yes, because that's reflective of the need of the community. People are coming to us because they're looking for full-time work and they need full-time work. Most people who are looking for employment are not receiving SSI or SSDI benefits, so their income is very, very limited, and so and people want to work. All the reasons why everybody wants and needs employment, the same is true for individuals with disabilities. So the vast majority are looking for full-time employment, so it's incumbent on us to meet that need.
And then what's the current average starting salary for ATWORK participants to get hired to full-time positions?
I think the median salary is probably around $50,000. But we've had individuals who are connected to positions that are significantly higher than that. We won't refer people to employment that is below minimum wage.
And what are some of the sectors folks are being hired?
Everything, arts and culture, IT, city government, and all the things that happen in city government, health and human services, healthcare. Those are probably the primary ones.
And this is by the interests of the participants?
Yes, we try to find, we work with employers to understand what their hiring needs are, and those are the kinds of opportunities that we try to promote to our job seekers. Our job seekers, we try to find matches within that. Sometimes individuals may come to us who are looking for specific kinds of roles that we just have not necessarily seen a lot of opportunities for. And in that case, we would either work with them to find something that is similar within kind of the scope of our partnerships, or connect them to other organizations or programs that are working in other areas. That's one of the things that's been a real benefit of our partnership with Workforce One. They work in a lot of different sectors than we do, and so it's a really great way to find a balance of the opportunities that they have and the job seekers that we do.
And then are you seeing any trends of there not being employment available, or difficult time to get someone employed because of the employment status? And would love to know the duration it takes for a participant to get partnered.
Sure. So I can answer the first question first. It's a little challenging to measure how long somebody is participating in the program, because there's a lot of reasons why that length of time varies. Individuals may no longer maintain engagement with our program and won't always let us know that they're disconnecting. And that may be because of something personally, health, disability related. They may find other employment, or they may be working with other providers and not necessarily notifying us. And the kinds of jobs that people are looking for and the availability of those jobs may, definitely vary quite a bit. And the kind of the volume and scope of services that an individual needs varies considerably. And so all those factors come into play. Generally speaking, and especially in the last few years, as the job market has been becoming increasingly more challenging, there is a little bit of a mismatch of there being higher skilled opportunities available and individuals who would benefit from skills training or upskilling to be able to better qualify for those positions. And so that could be a challenge.
Got it. And how are you all responding to jobs going robotic?
That's a really good question. Generally speaking, we want to be able to consider ways of finding upskilling and transitional opportunities so that individuals can be better qualified for the changing job market.
And are you all sort of planning for that, or is that just
We're-
something that's
we're,
out
we're,
there?
We're aware that it is happening and figuring out what the most appropriate ways to respond will be.
Okay, looking forward to more information on that. And I'd like to know if participants report back to Moped, or after they get the job, they're independent of Moped.
We love to find out when people get hired, both because it helps us be able to share successes about the program, but it's also really exciting for the career advisor when we hear someone just got a job offer. We provide retention support for a year after somebody starts, and that can fluctuate. Sometimes people come back to us because they're looking for another job because they're not staying. It could be because they're looking to move up in their career. So, when those situations come up, we try to do our best to help that person navigate that next step.
But there isn't
and
like
that's
a
always really exciting.
mandated, like every quarter needing to report something or evaluate, or
In that year period, we try to check in at the beginning once a week, then to about once a month, and then quarterly through the end of that year. But we don't, we require that they submit proof of employment when they start, but we don't require them to continue to submit pay stubs or any other sort of documentation later on.
Got it. Thank you. And final question, can you share how immigrants with disabilities are impacted right now in the job market, and just, again, because of the federal targeting?
That's a really good question. We have definitely been approached by other city entities as well as individuals who have been impacted by that. Unless someone is authorized to work in the United States, our program can't necessarily assist that person outright with finding employment, but we've done our best to provide those individuals with direction and guidance and resources to other entities that can do that, as well as supporting those entities to navigate the disability if they need that, and then similarly with any other partners to navigate that as well.
And are immigrants participating or applying for the program?
I don't know we don't collect information on immigration status, so I really couldn't say.
Got it. Okay, back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Councilmember Botcher.
Thank you, Chair. And I also want to thank you for your good work in your office. You testified that your team is small and that the team of 6 people and the resources you have not yet matched the growing demand. How big should your team be? What level of resources would meet the growing demand, particularly with the employment efforts for people with disabilities? And have you requested those resources in the budget?
Yes. When Chairperson Lee asked that question, I said 5, but I was thinking about it. I think maybe it's more like 10 to 12. Maybe 15. Right now, there are 3 individuals who
I knew she'd be ahead of me on that one.
I have a team that provides direct services out of the Workforce One in downtown Brooklyn, and there are 3 people who that's their specific role. If we were going to be able to expand that presence across the hubs in the 5 boroughs, at least 2 people in each of the hubs, and as I mentioned, we also would need additional support for business development in the public and private sector, so that it's not just about bringing people into the program and enrolling them, but we also need to be able to have the jobs coming in to match that demand as well.
You testified that the program began as a public-private partnership, and now it's being entirely funded by the city. Why not pursue additional private industry support for helping folks with disabilities get employment?
When we were a public-private partnership, the public part of that partnership was actually the state, just to clarify. And for us, it was really important that the city stood by its support for New Yorkers with disabilities, and that's something that we're really proud of. We are considering private funding to support the program and to help us with that expansion. Over the last 18 months or so, we've been undergoing some pretty significant transitions as part of moving into the Workforce One system, adapting to that system. And so, at that time, it wasn't appropriate for us to be pursuing that, but it is something that we would like to be able to do and have started to begin some of those communications.
That's great. And I think it's entirely appropriate and good that the city has stepped up to fund this program. We should never be relying on the private sector to do what government should be doing. At the same time, we're in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country on earth, and we have so many companies in New York with so much resources. They should be invested in this, and they should be contributing to this to make sure that we have the headcount on your team to get jobs for people with disabilities. Have the hiring freezes at the city level, have they stymied your efforts to get folks with disabilities employment in the municipal workforce?
Yes.
They basically just put a freeze on everything, right?
We're seeing, there was a period of time when there was a hiring freeze across most of the city. At that time, there were some agencies that were exempt from that. For example, we worked really closely with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene at that time, and we partnered with them to have a recruitment specifically for that agency to be able to bring on people who were exempt from that freeze. And that was, I think that was in the end of 2023. And I think we had about 15 people who were hired through that event, maybe between 10 and 15. As the hiring freezes have changed, that we've been able to expand our partnerships with other agencies.
Are there any agencies that have really stood out as real shining examples when it comes to hiring people with disabilities?
Yes, although I'll clarify that there's not a fully comprehensive understanding of how many individuals with disabilities are working with at every agency, because that's not data that's collected or shared. But in terms of our partnerships, DOHMH has been a fantastic partner. The Department of Citywide Administrative Services has been an especially notable partner. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few that have been really great, and I would feel badly missing them. But those, I would say, are the most.
Those two will get gold stars.
I would say those are the two most recent and long term. HRA also has hired a high number of individuals with the 55A program. They also work really closely with our shared partner with Good Temps, which brings on people in temp positions. And we've been partnering with them to help individuals develop more experience so that they're better qualified for permanent city positions.
Any agencies whose name should go on the board for not doing a great job?
Probably.
All right.
And she's going to
Thank
leave
you.
it at that.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councilmember Botcher. You're going to find us that corporate funding, right? Get us that money. Yeah.
You let me know.
Okay. So I think actually we are good with the questions, and we're going to move into the public testimony section. But I would love to encourage you all. I know everyone's busy, but if folks from Moped could stay and hear the feedback from the public, that would be really awesome. And so we're just going to move really quickly into public testimony. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so while we're getting situated, I just wanted to read a few ground rules for today. So now I'm opening up the hearing for public testimony. I want to remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please make sure you fill out the appearance card in the back with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. And when recognized, you will have 3 minutes to speak on today's oversight topic and legislation. If you have a written statement or additional written statement testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. And I have to say, our staff on the council really do, trust me when I say they read every single word of your testimonies and actually take that into consideration when thinking through how to improve some of these bills and pieces of legislation. So they really work hard and just want to commend them on that. So make sure you submit it. So the first panel in person, feel free to come up. We have Rosalie Joseph, Paul Bearhorst, James Carey, and Summer Carbuccia. And you guys can go in any order you want. We can start from this side if you want. So go ahead. And then make sure the mic is on. You'll see that.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rosalie Joseph, and I'm reading testimony from actor-producer Woody Harrelson. I want to take a moment to share my experiences working on the film Champions, a project that has profoundly impacted my life and perspective. For those who may not be familiar with Champions, it features a cast entirely of actors with disabilities. Collaborating with these incredible group was truly one of the highlights of my career. Alongside our director, Bobby Farrelly, I felt the experience was nothing short of magical. Working on this film led me to a significant change in my perspective. Initially, I approached the project with some trepidation, but I quickly developed a deep appreciation for the talent, humanity, and spirit of my fellow cast members. The performance of my co-stars were not only refreshing, but also deeply honest. I learned so much from them. Their talent and authenticity taught me more than I could ever impart. Together, we hope this film will inspire others to create more roles for actors with disabilities and to provide opportunities behind the camera as well. Also, that the film will encourage individuals with disabilities to pursue their dreams of being in the film industry. Now, the budget of Champions had to account for the unique needs of the disability community, which can often make it challenging for filmmakers to consider additional line items for access coordinators or accommodations. This reality contributes to the unfortunate scarcity of both actors and crew members with disabilities in the industry. From my experience on Champions, it is clear that the film industry is missing out on a wealth of talent, creativity, and experience that would enrich our stories. I firmly believe that working on a set should be accessible to all qualified individuals, regardless of the associated costs. This proposed bill aims to address this issue by facilitating more consistent hiring practices for people with disabilities, which could lead to a more inclusive and diverse film industry. I am hopeful that together we can advocate for change and create a more inclusive environment in the film industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, council members, colleagues, and advocates. I'm James Caverly, and I'm a disabled artist working in television, film, and theater. I'm more widely known for my work in Only Murders in the Building, but I've built my career on both sides of the camera as a performer, a storyteller, and an advocate. I'm here today to voice my support for Intro 1307. New York City is home to the best artists in the world, but it must also be home to the most accessible industry in the world. And right now, it isn't. Too many productions still treat accessibility like a last-minute prop, added late, underfunded, and only if someone fights for it. So let me be clear. Access is not an upgrade. It is infrastructure. And when access isn't built in, the cost is paid by us, disabled artists. Time after time, we are asked to perform and educate, to create and justify, to work and troubleshoot our own barriers. We become unpaid consultants in environments that were never designed for us. By funding accessibility from day one, this bill ensures every production has the tools to hire, support, and retain disabled talent, on screen, off screen, and across every department. When you budget for access, you budget for dignity, you budget for possibility. And the payoff is enormous. Because when disabled artists are in the room, the story of humanity gets bigger, richer, and more honest. We don't just belong in the audience. We belong in the writers' rooms, the rehearsal hall, the edit bay, and the spotlight. New York has always led, and we can lead again, not with statements, but with structure. Not with slogans, but with systems. Let's build an industry where disabled artists are not exceptions, but expectations. I urge the council to pass Intro 1307, and in doing so, set a standard that reaches far beyond the entertainment industry, one that can influence every sector from education to corporate workplaces and ultimately inspire national change. Let this city say, loudly and without hesitation, we all deserve a place in the story. Thank you.
Amen to that.
Good morning, and that's fine. It is. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Paul Bearhorst. I'm the co-founder of Consultability, a consulting organization that helps performing arts centers across the country create accessible and inclusive experiences for audiences, artists, and staff with disabilities. And I also serve as the accessibility manager at the Perlman Performing Arts Center here in New York City. Every day, I see the tremendous talent, creativity, and leadership that disabled artists and professionals bring to the performing arts. And I also see the barriers that keep them from being hired, retained, or fully supported. Too often, productions want to be inclusive but simply lack the resources or guidance to do so effectively. Intro 1307 changes that. By providing grants to productions that hire disabled actors, crews, and creatives, and by funding the accommodations and production access coordinators needed to make the inclusion sustainable, this bill doesn't just open doors, it keeps them open. It also recognizes that data and accountability are essential. By tracking disability employment and building a shared knowledge base, the city can help the entertainment industry move beyond good intentions to measurable progress. New York City has long been a cultural leader. Passing Intro 1307 ensures we also lead in accessibility and equity, making our stages and sets reflect the diversity of the city they represent. Thank you for considering this vital step towards a more inclusive and creative future.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Summer Carbucia. I am a white Latino male with a shaved bald head, a full black beard, and I'm wearing a black long sleeve shirt with a dark blue collared one peeking out from underneath. I'm here to speak in support of Intro 1307, sponsored by Council Member Marte, and I wanted to start with an earnest thank you to all of you for your notice and support for our community. I am an actor and performer of both stage and screen, and as you could see if I was standing through my choice of attire today, I'm a right leg amputee and thus a performer with a disability. I lost my leg in a subway accident in 2014 while attending NYU Tisch. And while this of course presented many challenges, both personal and professional, I managed to push through, get my degree, and establish what I consider a very lucky career in the industry that I love. But almost none of that work has been able to be in New York City. It is no secret that the recent state of the entertainment industry has been both very difficult and in a state of great change. While Intro 1307 cannot address those trends, what it does do is ensure that the productions coming back to and starting in NYC can do their due diligence in hiring from a community that makes up about 20 to 25% of our city's population. By providing grants to productions hiring actors, crew members, and creative professionals with disabilities, you would guarantee these endeavors could budget for necessary accommodations for these workers and allow them to engage with production access coordinators who I have found to be invaluable resources for maintaining accessible, productive work environments, not only for people with disabilities, but for productions as a whole. And there is hope on the horizon for production in New York City. For instance, in early 2026, we will see the grand opening of Sunset Pier 94 Studios, Manhattan's first purpose-built Hollywood-grade studio ever. And while with city officials estimating this project will generate $6 billion for our city's economy, I believe with legislation like Intro 1307, you would help to ensure the disability community has the tools necessary to be a part of and evolve with what I see as a very promising future for the business we call show in NYC. Thank you, council members, for your time.
Thank you. I know Councilmember Marte has a couple questions as well as I do as well.
Thank you all for being here. My question is for Rosalie. I know you read a statement from Woody Harrelson, but I also know that you have played an important role in bringing this idea to my office, and you have contributed in your career in helping people with disabilities have the opportunity in the media sector. And I just want you to briefly talk about what you've done, who you are, and what you seek to do.
Okay, I didn't expect that. Well, I was a casting director for over 4 decades, and I was also a board member of the Casting Society of America for many decades. And in about I would say 2015 or 2016, I started the performers. Well, I with my fellow board members of the Casting Society, we started initiatives for performers with disabilities. Because it was so clear that there was not enough representation. I mean, as bad as it is now, you can only imagine in 2015. But so years we did open calls, et cetera. But I came to CBS my last 2 years before my retirement, and along with 2 of my colleagues and my West Coast colleagues, one of them is here, Alex Mohawiho, and Eric Goldberg, who's on vacation. We established a Performers with Disability initiative, again, to promote more work for actors with disabilities on CBS. And one of the things that we worked hard for, was to create a line item in budgets. So this would just automatically encourage people to hire people with disabilities. It didn't happen there. So since I've been out of the business for a couple of years, it's still been on my mind. And I've worked with Councilmember Marte on many downtown initiatives. So I thought maybe this is a way to go. So I'm so grateful that he took it up, and we've been working on it together. But there is so much more besides people on stage. You know, where are the location managers, and I've called the Teamsters to find out, do we have people identifying with disability working on either locations or several things that the Teamsters cover, and there aren't many. And people have the dreams of being in this industry and don't see an opening. And this bill, I think, our hope is that it would say, hey, there's an opportunity here for you. Come. Get trained, learn about being in this. This is what your dream is. You should have an opportunity to do so. So I think that's it.
I also had a question for the panel, and feel free for any of you to respond. And please forgive my ignorance of the entertainment industry. Although at one point I really was looking into it. But I still have dreams of being an extra on Saturday Night Live. Just a tree in the background, it would be good. But I wanted to know. I mean, do production companies have budgets already baked in to accommodate? And okay, I see a lot of heads shaking no. Because my concern is that you know, in order to do this right, I think we need to make sure that there is extra funding in the budgets, and a lot of these productions, I'm assuming, are, you know, millions and millions of dollars worth. And so has there been any movement in the community to urge a lot of the production companies to put this in their budget, as well as making the accommodations and doing the outreach to the community? Has there been any effort? Okay.
Yeah, as far as production companies, there has been a movement for accessibility budgets. At least I know in film and TV, as well as on the casting end of things as well. I know theater specifically has been a big hurdle too, just because of the infrastructure of a lot of these theaters. Anecdotally, I went to go see Little Shop of Horrors yesterday, and there were only staircases to go up to the theater. So for an audience or employee, that would be not very accessible. So while this does address one end, on the other end, there is just kind of the long-standing infrastructure, physically as well as you know, structurally, of the industry.
Okay, thank you for that. And I just wanted to recognize, James, your comment about being in the room, because I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have a seat at the table. And Commissioner Curry always says to me, you know, nothing about us without us, right? And I do believe that having a seat at the table, even in just my one small example of how we hired the, you know, we had the intern who was with us, who was blind, taught me some very simple facts about how to make our social media platforms and our communications more accessible, right? And so I think it only helps to enrich and improve everything all around for everyone to increase accessibility. So I just wanted to get a sense of, you know, how it has been sort of in the room once you are there, and what the reception is, or what sort of the willingness of directors and writers are to incorporate not just the stories, but folks with disabilities into the storytelling and the writing piece of it as well. And feel free for anyone to respond.
Yeah, so I would like to say there's been a long history of marginalization of the deaf community, deaf artists, and just the industry in general. And often we have boundaries at every level, from birth to education systems not designed for deaf people, through home life, not really accommodating deaf children and their needs, and then, you know, as they grow up in age and levels. So, you know, there's only a few people that are able to have the skill and the intelligence enough to really navigate this industry, like myself, you know, but we have to take a lot of things on the chin, and it's really related to funding. Like, we don't have resources to provide interpreters, for example. We don't have resources to provide what's called accessibility coordinators, who are there to, you know, be responsible for providing interpreters and making sure that the environment is safe and accessible for people with disabilities. That's just one example. But by not having these things, it means that, you know, it's another layer of boundaries on top of boundaries for me. And there's a thing that I have to brush up against all the time. And, you know, there should be a list of resources and resources available to people who are navigating this world, so that their boundaries are easy to overcome, so that they can provide their stories. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Go ahead, sorry.
Thanks. And I do think you mentioned the storytelling of it. I do think on the creative side, so casting directors, directors, writers, we do often find a lot of support. The lack of maybe input usually comes from the producerial end, because that is line items, that's money, that's budgets. So kind of taking away that barrier is often the only barrier they would see for a production, having this kind of advocacy. So yeah.
Thank you. And just so you all know, because I said this, when did I say this? Did I say this at the last hearing? I said this somewhere where I was speaking recently, where I wanted to sort of demystify for everyone in the room here how we can introduce ideas for legislation and bills, right? If you were to reach out to me and say, or, you know, Councilmember Marte or Sarah over here and say, hey, we have an idea for an accessibility bill. Here's just like a few sentences of an idea. Is it something you can look into? And then what we do on our end is we have an amazing team of attorneys as well as folks on the legislative division who then look into things like, do we as a city council have jurisdiction over this? If not, can we create a resolution to go to the state, which signals that we want them to act and respond? Or the federal government. And so I say this to say, because when I was on the nonprofit side, one of the things I didn't realize was, wow, we can actually give legislators these ideas and then they can sort of look into it. And there's actually some bills we had at our previous hearing about related to mental health and childcare and criminal justice system that, you know, stemmed from just having people testify. And so I just really wanted to encourage you all to really reach out. It doesn't have to be me, but to your local council members and to folks in government if you have these kind of ideas. Because already just based on your testimonies here, I'm already thinking of certain bills. Sorry, Sarah, that we want to look into. And so please keep us in mind for that as well. So I just want to thank you all for being here. Oh, right, next panel. And I just want to say, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing folks' names. I'm sorry. So the next panel is Rosalind Barber, Alice Shepard, Christine Bruno, Lisa Dennett, and Greg Mosgala. Sorry, what was your name? I'm sorry. What was your name? Okay, Lisa Dennett. Sit in the audience if you want. Yeah, sit wherever you're comfortable. And feel free, you could start on this side, whatever, whichever way you guys want to go. If you want to.
Is it on? Okay. Yes, I'm going to start because I think my testimony is more of a little bit of a bird's eye view. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Bruno. I am a proud disabled New Yorker, union actor, educator, and disability equity consultant specifically for the entertainment industry. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in support of Intro 1307. Deaf and disabled creatives and audiences like me and many of my colleagues here today, along with our non-disabled allies, have been fighting for decades to see ourselves on stage and backstage, on screen and behind the camera, not only accurately, but authentically. For decades, we have met with resistance from decision makers at every turn, in every sector of our field, despite being America's largest minority at 28%. The most common argument we hear is the money is simply not there, to provide the accommodations we may need to do our best work. This bill makes a bold and enduring statement on not only about who we are as a city, but who we aspire to be. If we want to live up to Lin-Manuel Miranda's vision of us as the greatest city in the world, it is incumbent upon us to lead the way and provide a model for equity and inclusion across the country. Enacting legislation that supports deaf and disabled creatives by eliminating financial barriers to funding and providing resources for productions to enable us to participate fully in the workplace is more than a groundbreaking achievement toward equity for disabled artists. It will strengthen the cultural health of this city by fully representing our diverse and rich cultural and creative landscape, one that includes nearly 1 million disabled New Yorkers, which has been reiterated by others. To help us achieve that goal, I know my union, SAG-AFTRA, is working directly with the sponsors of this bill to make it even more attractive and to ensure critical protections for the community it serves. This bill could not have come at a more important moment. At a time when disabled people's civil rights and very lives are on the line. We are under attack, and we as disabled artists have always been under attack, and artists without disabilities have always been under attack from those who wish to control or silence our voices, expressly because we are truth tellers. Through our work, we illuminate the best and worst in ourselves and of humanity. We have a responsibility to our art, to ourselves, and most importantly, to one another, to forge ahead unafraid. Thank you so much for your time and support. And to close, I will paraphrase one of my favorite lyrics from Hamilton: New Yorkers, we get the job done. And I should say a little description of myself visually. I am a petite white woman with short brown hair. I am wearing brown glasses today and a blue long sleeve top.
Hi, I'm Rosalind Barber, and I'm here today on behalf of the New York Shakespeare Festival, doing business as the Public Theater. And I am also a petite white woman with long brown and gray hair, and I'm wearing a black jacket. Thank you so much for the opportunity to submit testimony in strong support of Intro 1307 today, the Accessibility Entertainment Bill. The public is proud to join advocates across New York City in advancing a more inclusive and accessible cultural landscape. And I want to particularly recognize Christine and Elizabeth and my colleagues who I've worked with for a number of years, because it is truly a effort that takes all of us together working to make this a more accessible New York. Founded by Joe Papp, the public operates on the belief that theater is an essential cultural force and that art and culture belong to everyone. This belief guides every aspect of our work on stage, in parks, in community centers, and behind the scenes. Accessibility and inclusion are not special initiatives at the public. They are integral to our mission. In recent years, we have made deliberate and sustained efforts to ensure that our programs, facilities, and employment practices reflect that commitment. And we know that it is not enough, and that we are on a journey together with our colleagues to always be evaluating these practices and strengthening them and understanding where we are not achieving our stated goal. Our 2023 production of Ryan Haddad's Dark Disabled Stories was a landmark example of disability-led storytelling, created and centering a disabled artist. The production deepened our understanding of accessibility not only as an artistic practice, but as an institutional responsibility. Building on that foundation, the public continues to explore new ways to employ and support artists and cultural workers with disabilities. This includes our work on a forthcoming musical that will engage disabled artists and creatives across disciplines, and opportunities that underscore both the potential and the challenges of sustaining disability inclusion in production. Our commitment to accessibility also extends to our physical spaces, and the public has made significant capital investments to ensure our facilities are welcoming for artists, audiences, and staff with disabilities. The recent renovation of the Delacorte Theater, which we worked on with Christine, which was actually extremely helpful to have a person who is a practitioner of cultural work working with us as a person who could say, yes, this technically is ADA accessible, but you know what? How am I going to make my entrance if this lift breaks? So I would definitely recommend that type of inclusion in the process is so key, not only to building a theater, but also in thinking before we get to the show about how we're going to make sure that this is a sustainable practice. So as the panel mentioned earlier, that it's not, we're starting the show and it's, oh no, what are we gonna do? We need more money for that. Oh, are we gonna cut this thing to make more money for that? It should be built into the practice. So for all of these reasons, we strongly support this proposed legislation, and we really appreciate your thoughtfulness in identifying this issue and hearing from advocates about what could make more sustainable and accessible New York, particularly in this field. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Greg Mosgala. I'm an actor, theater professional, born with a disability. I have cerebral palsy. I'm a cisgendered white male, mid-40s. I have salt and pepper hair. I'm wearing maroon pants, a gray shirt, and a gray jacket. I did provide prepared testimony, but since sitting in the back, I just thought I would come and speak a little off the cuff here, so bear with me. Years ago, I was speaking to a producer of a major theater here who said, you know, Greg, whenever I have to consider hiring someone like you, meaning a person with a disability, that's when the problems for me start. And upon further interrogation, the major issue around that was cost, was economics. So I cannot say enough how important an initiative like this is and how essential it is for the cultural success of New York City. I later worked with that theater company on a production on Broadway. And one of my good friends was in that, hired in that production. She is a wheelchair user. The dressing rooms were inaccessible. They had to retrofit and build a dressing room on stage. I know the cost of that was $60,000. That information was shared with us, which was unfortunate. We had finally been given the opportunity to perform on Broadway, which as an actor is the World Series of theater, knowing that you just want to show up and do your job, that your participation in that cost that theater tens of thousands of dollars. I'm glad to see that the public is here. Thank you very much. I just finished a residency with them, my company, and I was fortunate enough to perform in a production of Richard III pre-renovation a few years ago at the Delacorte Theater. During that production, there was no lift to the stage at that time. Friend Tony winner Ali Stroker was in that production playing Lady Anne, if you're familiar with the play. Again, was informed that the production had to incur a cost of $125,000 just to make a lift so Ali could enter the stage and participate, to do her job. Again, so imagine not having the dignity of participate in your job, or having the dignity to not being able to change, right, your costume, right, and the incurred costs. We're getting to the really granular stuff. Cultural work is work. Work is dignity. It benefits this city and this society greatly. So again, I just think it is absolutely essential. And again, it wasn't the public, no offense, that said we need this. It was because the disabled body entered that space, was hired, that drove the access. So I believe that it's actually the artistry that drives the access, not the other way around. So we need the art to happen for the access to follow. Thank you. And sorry, I would be remiss. I did not know that Resolution 338 was on the docket today. My son, who is 7, was just diagnosed as neurodivergent. I just want to echo my full support for that resolution. That process is incredibly stressful as a parent, incredibly Byzantine, and I just want to throw my full support behind that resolution. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alice Shepherd, and I'm a multiracial black woman with pink dyed hair, a maroon jacket, black pants, and I'm seated in a manual wheelchair, and I'm wearing a dusky rose N95 mask. I'm killing the professional look for today. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of the Intro to 1307. It's been said, but I'm going to say it again. New York is the capital city for cultural production and performance. It is also the capital city for disabled cultural production and performance. Disabled people work in every aspect of this industry. And I know this because I'm also the artistic director for Kinetic Light, which is a New York City-based, not-for-profit dance company. We make accessible film, we make accessible performances, and we enjoy sold-out performances in New York City. I employ around 30 to 45 disabled people for every production. And we are known nationally and internationally as leaders in the creation of accessible performances. I believe that we are here because we know that hiring disabled people is the right thing to do. Yeah, there are actors, artists, filmmakers, writers, directors, editors, designers of costumes, scenic, sound, composers, producers, coders, lighting designers, administrators. Yeah, we're here. But hiring disabled people is not just about who is in front of the camera. Putting down a ramp, hiring an ASL interpreter, you should do that. However, I have been in this field for 20 years, and I urge you now to accept this bill in order to make a shift. It is critical that we cease to make access the problem of the individual artist and think about access as a way of making work itself accessible. This bill will help create funds for people and productions to do that. It is a fundamental act of justice with deep practical impact. And you know what? It isn't the first time this idea has come before the city. The 2016 DCLA Cultural Plan asked you to do this and outlined the benefits of such a fund. So, because New York's New York, let me put you to some people who can help move this forward. There is already a robust ecosystem of workers who know how to make the entertainment industry accessible. There are disabled access workers, intimacy coordinators, production access managers, production access organizers. It's a double whammy, y'all. Hire a disabled worker, hire a disabled access worker. We know how to get it done. And leaders like Alison Kopit and Madison Zalapeni are at the center of a community of access workers who can help create legal, equitable, and functional access for productions. When you invest in the ecosystem of disability, access, and art making, you support employment for disabled people, which is the legally correct thing to do. It is also the just thing to do. And if you're thinking more about capitalism than justice, access and disabled people will help New York do what we do best, make damn good art. Thank you very much.
Right on the buzzer. I have to say, you guys have been extremely amazing at sticking to time. That usually never happens. So I actually had a question for this panel or for others that may know the answer to this because, when I was in the nonprofit sector, as an example, we would get these laws changed and they would say, just figure it out and do it. And I'm like, well, where's the money? And there is no money. So I would have to do extra fundraising events and have my staff work all hours so that we could raise money for this. And so I guess my question is, have the unions or anyone done research in terms of what the appropriate cost would be? And the reason why I ask that is because, and just to keep in mind also that on the city council, we control less than $1 billion of the entire city budget. Our leverage comes from negotiating with the mayor because in order to get the budget, we have to approve it and vote yes, right? So you have 51 council members that need to vote to approve the city budget. And so I'm wondering a couple things. Number one, has there been any movement in terms of getting more funding into the budget to support this, either on the council side or the mayor's side? And then the second thing I would ask is, are there maybe some opportunities, as Councilmember Botcher mentioned before, for public-private partnerships? Are there corporations that understand this, that have expressed interest? How can we, on the government side, maybe partner with them to think through pilot projects? Like, there's ideas that we can do. For example, we can do a pilot project, which we have done in the past, with a public-private, with a private partner. So these are all things that I would say maybe we should explore and look into, but I'm just curious about if there's been research done as an industry in New York City. And if you want to answer that, go ahead, because, yeah.
I think the initial question is right now there isn't a vehicle for the money to go. And by passing this bill, we'll create the establishment of a fund. So then eventually we can advocate for the amount of money that needs to be put in here. I think the initial fiscal impact analysis, so I expect how much money will go in the initial fund if we're able to move forward with it. It's actually quite small compared to the city budget. It's only $430,000 that would be there in the initial fund every single year. But I think for us, and the important part of this hearing is to create that fund so then the advocacy can come after and we can ask for the right amount that's needed for the amount of production that's happening here in New York City.
Okay, and not that I'm trying to give myself more work or my team, but I would be curious also to maybe see if there's a way to do a pilot project of some sorts to get a better sense of what the actual cost would be, because that sounds mad low to me. You should aim higher. No, it sounds a little lower on the lower side, but obviously anything we can do is a start. And we've had projects that we wanted, new initiatives that we've started on the council where we did start with much, much smaller dollar amounts just to sort of test to see what the success was. And we've been able to your point, build it out from there. But yeah.
I think just to sort of answer your question, just I'm thinking about the fact that this is so individual. It like depends on, for in some cases, it's project dependent, right? So I think Councilman Marte, I think starting with an initial amount, and because building the fund up to, I don't think that there's any sort of max that we would need to build the fund up, because the need is always going to be there, and I think the dollar amount is going to differ depending on the type of project it is.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through in my mind also potential corporate sponsors for this, but yes. Okay. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
One thing that I've noticed in my endeavors and efforts in this space is that this is a citywide, field-wide issue, right? It affects everybody trying to do this work, yet organizations don't talk to each other. So if there's anything that could be built in, it's, again, I think it's like make sure that organizations are communicating with one another, or that information is being disseminated so that they understand, oh, if I need captioning, I can get it from here or there. What do you do? Or make that information, disseminate that information and make it available, and make sure that people are sharing what their issues are. And I would just promote and engender conversation within the sector, because I feel like everyone's operating from a scarcity model and says we have to hold on to what we have. Whereas if you make it available to every cultural organization in the city, then they know, oh, we can just open up, and that I just don't understand why people don't want more butts in the seats, period, right? As an example, I think, every opera performance at the Met is captioned. That's just what opera does. So what do? How can the public or MTC or Broadway theaters or whomever learn from the Met? Has anyone thought to ask them? Things like that. It seems so simple and obvious, but that kind of connectivity is not happening within institution to institution across discipline.
I think it's important to distinguish between capital projects. The two examples that have been brought forth are capital renovations. And it's not to say that capital is absolutely not necessary. It fundamentally is. And the things I could tell you about working in New York as a dancer. But there's a way to think about capital renovation and access separately. And so part of what the job will be is to balance requests for capital with requests for other kinds of access that can be made along the way. And part of the trick is that everyone goes to capital, the built environment as almost a reflexive thought. And while that is significant, I urge you in your budgeting and in explorations to think beyond the ramp, even though if there isn't a ramp, I'm going to be seriously unhappy. End thought.
Thank you. And we have our budget cycle coming up, starting again in January because our fiscal year ends in June 30th. So it'll be interesting to see how we have these conversations moving forward, given that our budgets may actually be significantly cut. And so I think these are things that we're all trying to think through on the city council as well. So I appreciate you all coming out to testify. Thank you. Okay, next panel, and this is our last in-person panel. We have James Barnaker, Marilee Talkington, Elizabeth Hay, Daniel Pretzfelder Demchik, and Christopher Leon Johnson.
Yeah. Ready?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
there's another chair. Oh, sorry. Hold on one second.
Oh.
Yeah, 2 chairs.
Yeah. Wait. This. Take it down. Man. This guy named correctly on the fucking thing. Brendan Griffith. All right, good. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Ready? Hello, my name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm black man, keloids in my ear, back top, cracked teeth, purple shirt, blue pants, blue ACG Nike boots. It's called Korean. What is this? Korean American Family
Service Center.
Services.
That's my friend's
hoodie
nonprofit.
and a black shirt under me, and yeah, basically in a nutshell. Okay, so I'm here to show support for Chris Marte's bill. And I want to make this clear that I think that the council members should start calling out the president of AFL-CIO, Brendan Griffith, because I understand that SAG-AFTRA is helping out with this bill, but the president of the AFL-CIO needs to come here and show his support or make a written statement showing his support for the bill. I have a bit feeling that the reason this might have a little pushback in the city council is because of the fact that the many unions that's under AFL-CIO, like the various actor, like Grit Boys and all those unions that's totally responsible for setting up the carpentry to accommodate these guys and gals, and I support that. The deaf, the blind, the people that are physically immobilized, they don't want to do the work. They don't want to do the job. So you might have pushback from those unions themselves when it comes to this bill. Because they're lazy. They just want to collect a paycheck, but they cry all the way to the city council when they want to pay increase. Okay, you want your pay increase? Fine, I support a pay increase, but you got to put your butt to the pay increase. And a part of this is really accommodating to the disabled community. I'm calling on the city council to really start calling on Hollywood more and make them put their fair share into this, put their investments to this stuff when it comes to setting everything up to really accommodate the disabled. The problem I see here is that Hollywood, they feel they can do what they want in this city. Why is where like we can't walk down, if you're disabled and you only walk down a certain street, why they have their security people or blocking a whole street knowing that they can't do this, or having a people that get paid $50, $100 a day to tell people you can't walk down the street because we're doing production. I think the city council needs to make the way that if you're a disabled person and they in this situation, they have the right to sue these studios for allowing that, because there's certain places where if you're disabled, you can only walk that way. So I support this bill. I think that we need more investments to this, and we need to make sure that any person that disabled that know that disabled and they've been discriminated by these studios, even these productions on the street, they're able to sue them. And I believe that the city council, like I said, they need to put the president of AFL-CIO foot to the fire, Brendan Griffith's feet to the fire. And I want to make, I know 3 seconds left, that I support the resolution for the Cessna ride. There's a lot of issues with that. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Do I have it? Is it on? Okay. Hi, I actually my name is Marilee Talkington. Hello, everyone. I did prepare something, but I'd actually like to respond more to what I've heard and to one of your questions. Let me just say that I'm blind, which is why I'm wearing sunglasses. It's not just because I want to look cool, which I do, but I'm a blind actor, writer, director, producer. I also founded the organization AC3, Access Acting Academy, which is an organization that is specifically for blind and low vision actors. And we created a pedagogy that removed the visual bias from actor training, high caliber actor training. I have partnered with corporations. So what's happening now with partnering with corporations is that, let me just give one big example. I will not use their name, but they are one of the largest streaming companies out there right now. I got a $750,000 budget passed with them, and that was 3 years ago, to actually develop more blind and low vision talent, to actually create a whole infrastructure. And this was based on another program, a pilot program that I did that was extremely successful. And they were very excited to actually move forward with this. 3 years later, a few months ago, I finally talked to them and they said, we're actually pulling the money. The people that supported this are no longer here. And in fact, we're actually taking that money and putting it into other diversity projects that is no longer disability related. So one of the things that we have to think about when we're looking for corporate sponsors is that they believe that diversity, that they have siloed diversity into specific groups. And disability is the last one on the list, rather than everything working together in an intersectional way. So, yes, it would be great to get people on board, but I think the money that comes from New York City for disabled people is so critical for disabled people, not to be pulled because this money is going to go into another camp, diversity camp. One of the other things that I just wanted to say in terms of being a blind artist and increasing my own access costs. Because of the position that I'm in, I get to mentor a lot of blind actors, people who are just starting out and people who are working. There's no money right now, even with Department of Rehab, to actually pay for the things that we need on set. So for me, for example, I have had to buy very specific technology so that I could do a staged reading. I've had to buy certain iPads that have certain screen reader capability. Thank you very much. And I could go on and on. Let me just say that it would be great not to have to pay for my own access needs. So I am very much in support of this bill. Thank you.
Hello, my name is James Barnaker. I'm a neurodiverse actor, playwright, entertainer, and I am in full support of Chris Marte's bill. It would be great to have this bill. I'm going to speak off the cuff. I did have some prepared statements, but this is going better. That it would be great to have this bill, one, so that we don't have to pay for our access needs, two, because of the fact that we actually need it. I'm also on the board of CoLab Theater Company's leadership board, and we facilitate various and sundry off-Broadway and Broadway shows, one of them being How to Dance in Ohio. That was a hit amongst the disabled community, right? Right? Yes. Okay, good. Just making sure of that. Because that was such a success, a lot of the producers took on a lot of the technological needs and the actors' needs. It should be fair for all. In terms of SAG-AFTRA, same thing. In terms of any, diversity hire. I was also a product of the Job Force initiative. I am also in CUSAC. And there is a barrier for a lot of this. So I'm fully supportive of this bill and would actually love it if I didn't have to pay for all of my stuff. Like currently I'm operating off of a 2005 MacBook. Yes, I'm ashamed to say that, but I know it's vintage. That's what you call vintage. But also, it would be great to not have to pay for that. I'm also for my own production company. So great to have my staff who are going to be fully disabled. We would obviously want to take on those needs, but it'd be great to have the assistance. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning, council members. Hi, good morning, council members. My name's Elizabeth Hay. I'm actually a constituent, District 1 of Christopher Marte, so I was really excited when this came up. I'm a New York City-based casting director and casting professional, so I go between a lot of hats. But I am also one of the only people in my field that identify as disabled. I have cerebral palsy. And I'm here because I love this industry, and I know it could do better if everyone has a shot. My mission is simple: elevate as many voices as possible. When people see themselves on screen and behind the scenes, the possibility expands for audiences, for artists, for the city. My casting partner and I, Danielle, we cast our own projects and help a lot of our colleagues across the industry. And she'll speak to this a bit more, but we often do this work without pay, not because it lacks value, but because most productions will not and don't have the budget for authentic casting or accessibility. Here's the truth: even on prestige projects, they talk about inclusionary practices, they talk about inclusion, but there is no line item for access or the expertise that would make inclusion a reality. This is exactly the gap that 1307 is trying to close. And yes, access has a cost, but the idea that it's too expensive is a myth. It actually keeps doors shut, and it puts the burden on the artists and advocates to be disabled advocates, but also it puts them as unpaid volunteers in a sector that they just want to do their job. They just want to act. They just want to write. They just want to put on that one hat, and there's no additional compensation for what they have to do in extension to be their own accessibility advocates. This is personal for me. Since 2017, I've worked to amplify underrepresented voices in New York's casting community. I've watched what happens when a ramp is there one day, when ASL interpretation is booked in advance, when sensory-friendly sets are standard and not special favors. Talent flourishes, stories deepen, teams get stronger. This bill puts the infrastructure in that we're missing. Grants tied to hiring and accommodating disabled professionals, production access coordinators who know how to implement solutions, and data and best practices so success isn't accidental, it's repeatable. With a dedicated fund, more disabled creatives will lead, more stories will be told accurately, and more New Yorkers will see themselves reflected with dignity and pride. Thank you for your time and championing inclusion that isn't symbolic, but structural, sustainable, and overdue.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danielle Pretzfelder-Demchik. I am a white woman with long brown hair wearing a black shirt. I am a casting director and I serve as the Vice President of Advocacy for the Casting Society. Rosalie was a partner of mine for a long time. I've been doing that work since 2015 along her side. I'm also a disability studies master's degree student at the City University of New York. I provide support for over 1,200 casting directors worldwide free of charge to ensure authentic casting. Casting directors, producers, writers, directors, etc., come to me when searching for a disabled actor for a specific role or to consult on language used in a breakdown when casting an actor with a disability. Due to non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality, I can't say all the projects I've supported since I began this work about 10 years ago. But despite the amount of prestigious projects my work has touched, I can tell you that much of the work I do is on a volunteer basis. Elizabeth Hay is my partner. I put my money where my mouth is, and I say that we should be employing the best people for every job, and this is the best person for the job with me, and she just happens to be a killer disabled casting professional. And she supports these projects with me. We work, like I said, for free. This is directly due to the lack of resources designated to authentic casting and accessibility accommodations, even when authentic casting is a priority, as it was in one of the biggest movies of the last year that has a feature that is coming out again this year, a sequel. There was no specific money that was allocated to authentic casting. True inclusion is not solely casting disabled actors for disabled roles or hiring disabled writers to write disabled stories or disabled directors to direct disabled stories. True inclusion is hiring the best person for every job. And the only way for there to be a level playing field is if accessibility, which can sometimes cost money, is not a barrier. Disabled people, as you all know, are nearly twice as likely to be unemployed as their non-disabled peers. And even in media, according to a recent study by the Gina Davis Institute, disabled people are more likely than their non-disabled peers to be shown as unemployed in media. That's something we need to change. A fund like this can and will change that, and it will put more creatives that are disabled at the helm of the industry. This will organically foster more accurate portrayals of disabled characters and unconsciously increase positive value to the 1 in 4 people who have been vastly undervalued, which is who we're all here advocating for today, the disabled community. Thank you all for hearing more about Intro 1307. We are very passionate about it, and I'm so thrilled to have Elizabeth by my side to chat about this with you guys today.
Oh, right on time too. So basically, we need to clone you guys and then just create more of you all across the nation.
You can
to do
clone
that
us if we're
work.
paid.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, you have it. Okay.
Yeah, I sometimes get recognized as Dominic, the guy from the History Boys.
Nice. Thank you all so much for being here in person. And we're actually going to move over to our Zoom participants to testify. So please wait for your name to be called to testify and then select unmute when prompted for those on Zoom. And the first couple of speakers, few speakers we have, Imam Ramawi Doster, Anna Packman, and Richie Siegel. So Imam, whenever you're ready.
You may begin.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much, you all. My name is Iman Ramawi Doster. I'll be sharing some testimony about Accessoride, but I also want to share that I'm so happy that so many people shared about the importance of making the arts, whether it's acting, whether it's modeling, whether it's behind the scenes work, more accessible for folks with physical and all kinds of disabilities. I've worked on a few shows myself and they were not accessible at all, even though they were looking for disabled actors. So thank you so much. And I'll be submitting that testimony separately. So again, my name is Iman Ramawi Doster. I am the senior community organizer with New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. I am also an Accessoride customer. I want to express my support for Resolution 323, which calls on the MTA and New York City Transit Authority to adopt federally recommended measures to ensure that Accessoride serves New Yorkers on time. Accessoride, the paratransit service, which is run by the MTA, is a service that gives me freedom as someone with a physical disability who also has a chronic illness. But that freedom is limited and unreliable. How many of you need to book your trips 24 hours in advance to go anywhere in New York City? I'd like to take the train, but nearly 3/4 of the stations are inaccessible for someone who's a double amputee who uses a walker. There is a bit of hope, though, in the form of the on-demand program, which NILPI helped to get started in 2017. But because we only have 40 rides a month. I still need to use traditional rides for the rest of my trips because I am that busy. I use Access-a-Ride 6, maybe 7 times during the week. And sometimes I have several trips throughout the day, like I did yesterday. This week, my on demand decided to stop working, and I only had to use traditional rides, which wasn't easy to do, but I had no choice. I had work meetings, I had a panel, I had a doctor's appointment, and I had a class. I had plans with my friends. I have a life. There are over 180,000 Access-a-Ride customers, and about 1% of us have access to on demand. It would help people to get and keep jobs if they had on demand. It would help people's quality of life if they had on demand. It would give them the same freedoms I enjoy and need if they also had on demand. It would also help the MTA to address the problems identified by the DOJ in the report for Access-a-Ride on-time performance. NOPI supports Resolution 323 and also calls on the expansion of the Access-a-Ride on-demand program. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And then next we have Anna Packman.
You may begin.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, council members, for this hearing and for Intro 1307. I am here, I have to say my personal capacity, in my professional capacity, real quick, I work in state government, specifically in economic development, so I know firsthand the power of economic incentives. And I will tell you right now, and I've worked in the entertainment industry on the business side, no business will do anything because it's the nice thing to do. They will do it because they're incentivized to do it. So this is absolutely the right direction. I'm here, as I said, in my personal capacity. In addition, to my job, I'm also an independent filmmaker. And I hope in considering this bill that you will also consider those of us who are putting our own resources into creating this work, which I'm incredibly passionate about because, like others have said, the industry, Hollywood in particular, is not doing a good job of telling disabled stories. So often it falls to us to do it ourselves. And I create the work I do because that's the only way to get authentic stories out into the market. And my work has screened at festivals around the world. It's gotten hundreds of thousands of views online. And the feedback has been incredible. Audiences really do value authenticity. And the actors, and mostly who are also disabled, that I've worked with have gone on to get projects, to get agents, to get projects in Sony. So those of us on a grassroots level, we're often that pipeline to help people get work, to get that resume that will allow them to get work in bigger productions, which, also all of those steps along the way, accessibility is a cost. And often we, like others have said, are fronting that ourselves. Oh, and also we definitely need on-demand Access-a-Ride, please and thank you.
Yes, definitely, for sure. I second that. And Richie Siegel?
You may begin.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Richie Siegel. I'm the co-founder of Inevitable Foundation, a nonprofit that makes transformative investments in disabled writers and filmmakers. Back in 2022, we released the Cost of Accommodations Report, the largest known study on disability accommodations in film and television that Congressman Marte generously cited earlier in his introduction. We surveyed disabled writers, directors, crew who in aggregate worked on over 617 projects. They needed accommodations in more than half of those projects, and 30% of respondents had to pay out of pocket for basic access needs like transportation and ASL interpreters, as you've heard from many of the testimonies today. Lower level disabled professionals, who are really the next generation of this industry, were the least likely to request accommodations and the least likely to receive them. Many fear disclosure or stigma. As one respondent shared, when it was not possible to hide my disability, I lost a lot of jobs. A major misconception is that accessibility is prohibitively expensive. In reality, our data shows that accommodations typically increase budgets by only single-digit percentages. Yet in today's cost-conscious entertainment environment, even modest expenses can deter producers from hiring disabled professionals, especially on independent or lower budget productions. This bill helps solve that disconnect. By offsetting the minimal cost of access, the fund will unlock a significant pool of untapped creative talent to the over 11% of New Yorkers who are disabled, with less than 1% of them working behind the camera. The creation of a film, television, and theater accessibility fund would provide critical financial support to productions that commit to inclusive hiring and accessibility. It would incentivize studios and producers to bring disabled talent into projects from the beginning. New York City has the opportunity to lead the nation with this forward-thinking, industry-strengthening policy. Supporting this bill is not only the right thing to do for disabled people, it's a win for the creative economy, for equity, and for New York's leadership in entertainment. And just to say, we have an immense amount of data available. So if the committee, council, the city council needs anything, there's a lot out there that we can absolutely provide. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. And we may follow up with you on the data part. Okay, next we have Joseph Kibler, followed by Lawrence Carter Long.
You may begin.
Thank you. Hi, this is Joseph Kibler and Carrie Cox. We're a married couple and we work together. So we've written our testimony together. And we're both disabled. Yes, we're disabled actor, writer, director, producers. Stories are more than entertainment. Stories are meant to reflect the world around us, to warn us of what the world shouldn't be, and to inspire us to dream of what the world could become. We learn about each other through our stories. Stories open our hearts and minds to the other while allowing us to see ourselves. The inclusion of disabled people in entertainment is vital for the acceptance of disabled people in the world. Disabled entertainers are just as creative, talented, and innovative as anyone else, though our stories are unique. Yet we remain artistically and societally marginalized. Visibility in entertainment would lead to a public that is more educated about disability, more empathetic to disabled people, more willing to hire us, more willing to meet our needs, and more willing to see our worth. Disabled people make up roughly a quarter of the US population. However, currently the total share of screen time for people with visible disabilities is only 0.4% across all media channels, according to Nielsen in 2022. Disabled people face increasing discrimination and barriers to inclusion, as well as actual physical barriers to workplaces. As actors, writers, directors, and producers who both have access needs and have hired workers with access needs, we know that money is often used as a counter-argument to inclusion, suggesting that disabled workers carry a greater financial burden than other workers, which creates an unequal playing field. We both know specific instances when disabled actors who productions intended to hire were passed over for opportunities because of their access needs. In an industry filled with financial waste, and as producers of micro budgets, we see the financial argument against accessibility as an excuse to further discriminate against disabled people. We want to remove any excuse to exclude us and dismantle any argument against our inclusion. We deserve equal opportunity, disabled audiences deserve to see themselves on screen, and the world deserves to learn more about itself as it actually exists across all identities and intersections. And as parents to a hard of hearing child, we want him to build confidence from seeing himself represented. This bill supports our goals and dreams for a long marginalized community of change makers and innovators. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. And cute cat.
Thank you. And that's our child right there.
Got it. Lawrence Carter Long, followed by Ashley Eakin.
You may begin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. As was said, my name is Lawrence Carter Long, and I'm speaking here today on behalf of Intro 1307. I'm a skinny white guy wearing a burgundy shirt and a black sports coat. I'm also a lifelong disability advocate and director of engagement for Real Abilities International, a New York-based nonprofit behind the city's annual Disability Film Festival and a year-round advocacy organization for authentic disability representation in media and in culture. For nearly 20 years, we've seen how access changes, what gets made, who gets hired, and ultimately whose stories get told. We appreciate the opportunity to share the insights we've gained with you today. Look, it's still the Wild West out there. People in production companies are in different places on their journeys. One thing I know for certain, though, and this comes from working on policy in New York City and on the federal level for nearly 10 years. If it isn't the law, if it isn't in the budget, if you don't have the right disabled staff, inclusion efforts don't happen. Let's review the numbers. According to the Center for Disease Control, disabled people make up over 28.7% of the US population, but less than 1% of the entertainment workforce, according to our friends at the Inevitable Foundation. A recent survey of more than 1,300 top-grossing films found that only 2.3% of speaking characters had a disability, and just 40% of disabled adults surveyed by Easter Seals earlier this year said they'd seen any disabled person on screen in the past 3 months. That's the lowest figure in 4 years. We're not talking just about inequity here. We're talking about lost opportunity. According to a valuable 500 white paper published in 2024, the global disability community commands $13 trillion, that's trillion dollars in spending power. A 2025 UCLA study shows that films with authentic disability representation earn up to $32 million more on those all-important make-or-break opening weekends than those without. In other words, inclusion pays. With Intro 1307, New York City can help close that gap by turning accommodations from an afterthought into a creative baseline, replacing obstacles with opportunity and excuses with equity. As a nonprofit with our roots proudly embedded in New York City, Real-Abilities is more than ready and publicly commits to help this council, MOPD, MOM, and all stakeholders make the number of participants in New York City's entertainment landscape more reflective of reality. If implemented correctly, Intro 1307 can apply the skills that disabled have naturally: innovation, improvisation, and imagination. Those things we build without support because we're navigating a world not built with us in mind. Now, I ask you to imagine what can be done when we support and harness this expertise. Together, we can create a more equitable New York City that not only screens the best in inclusive programming, but also creates an infrastructure to make those projects here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And next we have Ashley Eakin and then Kia Amara.
You may begin.
Great. So I'm speaking today on behalf of Intro 1307. My name is Ashley Eakin. I'm a disabled white woman in my late 30s with light brown hair and wearing a green jacket. So I've worked in the industry for about 15 years. I rose through the assistant track, but for the past 8 years, I have worked primarily as a writer-director. And in 2022, I became part of the group who founded the DGA Disability Committee. And I currently serve as a co-chair after we became official in 2024. It was very exciting when it happened, but it was long overdue because disabled directors have always been around, many of us just hiding in plain sight or masking. Something I'm incredibly passionate about is advocating for a position called the Production Accessibility Coordinator, which this new bill could help fund. I directed 2 episodes of a show on Apple TV called Best Foot Forward, and when I got hired, this position already existed because the show had a disabled lead, which is rare. I'd never heard of this position before and was excited to learn and utilize this role. It was a below-the-line crew member who didn't have any stake in our job efficacy, like a studio exec who could see us as a liability. It was a person who maintained complete confidentiality and could advocate for our accessibility needs. Not only was it about access for the crew members and cast, it also served as an intermediary where non-disabled and disabled people could ask questions to inquire about each other's abilities instead of people just whispering on set. I always find that not only are disabled people fighting against basic hiring discrimination, but in addition, we are also having to fight for access, which is basically a point against us because the people in charge always equate our needs with more money. When you have someone like a production accessibility coordinator advocating on your behalf, it takes away that stigma. They are a safe space for people to do their jobs with their best abilities being maximized. When we started our show, we had about 6 or 7 openly identified disabled people. By the end, we had over 20 who asked for access needs. It goes to show that people are hiding their needs due to fear, which is a valid concern. If this were an incentive like this grant program, it could take away that fear so accessibility is the standard, not a privilege when it's given. It would relieve any stigma on having disabled people on sets. In fact, it could actually ignite them to get hired. So many of my projects with disabled folks don't move to greenlight because studios are too scared of the implication of costs. So I really appreciate you considering this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. So next we have Kia Amara, followed by David Caparelli-Otis, and then Katie Sullivan, and then finally Avery Roberts.
You may begin.
Hi all, my name is Kaya Amara. I am a white person with brown hair and a brown sweater on a background that shows the logo for my production company, Indivisible Entertainment. My sign name is Kaya. It's a K tapped by your eye, and was given to me as an access support because I work in access specifically. So my production company, which was founded in 2018 in NYC, specifically works in production accessibility. I am also a disabled person, so my roles coming into this space are both as disabled founder and business owner, as an employer of disabled folks, as a producer who works in the industry in all genres, from unscripted to commercials to narrative and TV. I am, in fact, the production accessibility coordinator who was on the production that Ashley Eakin just mentioned. That was our production company and myself personally. So we have a lot of understanding of sort of every angle of this bill and know firsthand from years of experience just how many holes this bill fills. So for us, again, yes, we see disabled folks as essential in leading production accessibility in this space. Again, we've been doing this since 2018 in major spaces, and specifically with those disabled hires. This allows us to build pipeline space that we really, really need. And although I can also speak to so many of those aspects of inclusion and representation and the importance of those aspects, I also really want to speak to this bill from the business owner perspective, being a disabled business owner and being a producer. Although, you know, there's so many factors. I think thinking about this bill as well from the perspective of being something that can bring production back to New York. Of course, all of us in the industry have seen how much production has fled to other locations. It's not just about productions knowing that this is something that they should be budgeting for, that production accessibility is something they should be including. It's about having those incentives to have production be in your area, knowing that productions are financially supported. Producers are looking for those assistances, those spaces where they know they can be supported in building out a framework that's going to make their project successful. I also think the research aspect, as folks have already spoken to, you know, we have data internally as Indivisible, but we are not allowed to share any of that data because this data is all under NDA. It is not disclosable because it is on production, and it is very rare that any production is going to voice a challenge, let alone a failure to provide accessibility. So that's something that is really important for us to see. And again, just having this space where we can also reach into a pool of money to accommodate. Every single
Time
year,
expired.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh,
So
wait.
every single
Oh, sorry. Just finish up the last few couple
Yep.
sentences.
Every single year, we have this experience of productions that reach out to us because of accessibility emergencies. And those can be life and death situations of things that have been built in space. Accessibility is not expensive when we build it right the first time. But if we build it poorly, it can be very expensive and preventative to actually fix those issues. So knowing that there's resources at the top allow us to do those cost-saving measures which build accessibility in from the beginning, which don't underpay disabled folks, which don't underpay accessibility workers. And again, there's so many holes and I could speak forever on it, but I really think this bill addresses a lot of them. So I'm very much in support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And apologies for pronouncing your name incorrectly, Kaya.
That's okay. Why the sign name's great.
And yes, wouldn't it be great if we could build it right in the beginning? That would be awesome.
It's much cheaper to do it that
I know.
way. So
Yeah, that's what we say in the mental health sector too, is that it costs less for the city and state to keep people healthy and in their homes. And this is all things that we know. And I think the same is true for this as well. So thank you for highlighting that. Okay, so we have David Caparelli-Otis, Katie Sullivan, and Avery Roberts.
You may begin.
Thank you so much. And you redeemed yourself by pronouncing my last name perfectly. So thank you so much for that.
Yay.
I did want to mention too that Director Sam Gold is also on deck here on Zoom. I didn't hear you mention his name, but he is wanting to speak.
Okay, now we see him. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Oh, does he have the Zoom link? Because I think he needs to log in. Oh, he does.
I
Okay.
think he does. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I want to thank the City Council for allowing us time to speak and for all the work that's been done already to put this bill on the table. My name is David Caparelli-Otis, and I'm a casting director here in New York City for TV, theater, and film. For me and for my casting colleagues, members of the persons with disabilities communities are not just names or numbers. As you can see today from these glorious people who have already spoken on their own behalves and for the community that they are a part of, they are living, breathing, talented human beings and artists with a breadth of skills and knowledge that are vital in telling stories in whatever medium with authenticity and lived experience. Too often, we as casting directors come up against limitations within the industry, be it fiscal, perceived, or actual, ill-equipped spaces and/or facilities, and sometimes outright bias that deny actors in this community access to vital opportunities, oftentimes germane to their own experiences and talents. Too often, these actors are told, no, the industry does not have room for you. It is too complicated. You are too expensive. And this hugely important bill would constitute a huge yes to members of this community, a vital and timely yes that in specific, actor John Christopher Jones heard when we cast him on the NBC Medical hour-long show, New Amsterdam. John had been acting successfully since 1971, mostly giving his life to theater. In 2003, John was diagnosed with Parkinson's. In 2009, John came to a meeting organized by casting directors with the PWD community and shared that he felt he had been rendered vestigial, remaindered, and unvalued, despite the huge breadth and quality of his life's work due to his physical situation, and despite feeling so vital and with so much left to share. And because NBC, Universal, and show creators David Schulner and Peter Horton saw John not as a disabled actor with limitations or with mitigative money signs over his head, but instead as a human being that they chose to assign currency and value to, and to what he brought to the show. Currency and value which you cannot quantify because it is priceless. They said yes. And it was a beautiful hour of television and a fitting capper for John's amazing career. And John is one of many to whom we need to say, he is representative of those that we need to also say yes to, that we need to value. This bill will go such a long way in doing so. I thank everyone involved for bringing it this far. I thank Rosalie Joseph, the incomparable Rosalie Joseph, for inviting me to speak, putting this on my radar, and to all the amazing actors and artists that have spoken before me. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you. Next is Katie Sullivan.
You may begin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today and including me in this very important conversation. Just so everybody knows, I am a cisgender white woman. I have red hair. I have a beige sweater on, and I'm sitting in my dining room. So much of what has already been said has been so poignant and so perfect. I want to acknowledge so many of the people in that room and on Zoom that are not only my colleagues, but my friends. I am an actress, and I was born a bilateral above-the-knee amputee. All I've ever wanted to be in my entire life is an actor. And growing up, that was not something that seemed like it was even a realistic goal for me, because the first time I ever saw anyone that looked like me in a television or on film was Gary Sinise and Forrest Gump. And when I found out that that was just an able-bodied man wearing green socks, I was devastated. And it felt like it was not a career path that was even possible for me. But it's through the fight of the people that are part of this conversation that we've started making noise in this industry, and we've started to show up and be identified and being a part, a voice in this industry. I've worked a lot in TV, and early on in my career, I spent a lot of time kind of having to do like the leg reveal. And that actually has not happened to me in quite a little while. And I feel like that is actually a good sign in this industry, is that things are starting to change. I asked my showrunner on Dexter why he wrote the character that I was playing as disabled. And he said, oh, well, I just wanted the town that we were shooting in to look like the real world. So I feel like we are making tiny steps in the right direction, but it's about normalizing seeing the people that uh, are in our environments and in our communities. And moving forward with this fund can help push that needle towards true inclusion for our community, and not having to worry about missing out on opportunities just based on their individual access needs. You've heard many people say that they've had to buy their own supplies and their own ways to make sure that this community is a community of people who adapt to a world that is not designed for them. And this could help open doors so that there are more opportunities for people in the entertainment industry, which will make it a more rich tapestry of our storytelling, make it more authentic and more compelling. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration for this.
Thank you so much. And next we have Avery Roberts.
You may begin.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of Intro 1307. My name is Avery Roberts, woman with light brown hair, wearing a gray top. I'm a professional dancer, a wheelchair user, and a rare disease and disability advocate. I'm passionate about access and authentic disability representation in our entertainment industry. Dance is where I feel free. It's a language beyond words. My wheelchair isn't a limitation. It's part of my artistry. But the entertainment world isn't built for artists like me, let alone people like me. Too often, accessibility in entertainment is treated as an afterthought, or worse, a burden or a box to check. One of my most meaningful moments was becoming the first wheelchair user to dance on the stage at Radio City Music Hall. It was historic, but it also revealed how far we still have to go. The rehearsal space wasn't accessible. My 400-pound power chair had to be carried up multiple flights of stairs, and I had to carry it as well. It was unsafe for everyone. That shouldn't happen. Not in a city that prides itself on being a leader in arts and inclusion. Intro 1307 is an opportunity to change that. This bill would establish an accessibility fund so productions in film, television, and theater can hire the best talent on camera, behind the camera, on stage, backstage, and in the writer's room without worrying about the cost of accommodations. Accessibility isn't special treatment, it's professional equity and opportunity for everyone. It's what allows artists to show up and do their best work. When we remove barriers, we expand what's possible for our artists, our audiences, and our city. Please pass Intro 1307 and make New York City's entertainment industry a model for inclusion, innovation, and authenticity, a place where every story and every body belongs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avery. And there were parts of your testimony where you were cutting out because the connection wasn't great. So can you make sure to, if you haven't already, we would love for you to submit your testimony online via email. And last but not least, we have Samuel Gold, who I believe is on.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Sam Gold. I'm a non-disabled, middle-aged, bearded Jewish man with a black sweater on. You've heard a lot of amazing testimony from disabled artists and disabled access coordinators saying the obvious about what would make the world of art better off in this city in ways that are extremely obvious and they shouldn't need to explain. As a non-disabled director and producer, I can tell you that the city would be so much richer for the participation that can only come with this money. I have spent many, many, many productions in theater and television trying to create enough access to hire disabled artists and have failed many times over small amounts of money. That must come from the city. The studios and the producers of Broadway can choose to hire non-disabled artists and to not fund this. It's up to the city to find the money. Broadway brings in billions of dollars to the city, and every Broadway theater is inaccessible. The spaces in which we make the work that brings billions of dollars into the city are spaces that I think the term is grandfathered in. They are spaces that do not need to meet accessibility requirements. I directed a play in a Broadway theater in which audience members who used wheelchairs needed to go to the Italian restaurant across the street and asked to use their bathroom because there was no bathroom for them to use at the theater. The spaces are not accessible, and the burden cannot be on the artists to make them so. The city must provide funding so that these productions can have access needs met for the artists so that the artists can show up and do their jobs, as everyone so eloquently explained at this meeting, that their vital participation in this community requires that their access needs be met. I think this bill is thrilling. I will use it the second it gets passed to make Broadway more look more like the real world and make the art better. It will immediately affect this city. I will use it all the time, and all of my colleagues will be dying to use it to make access more possible for us. All of us want to meet this goal, and we need this money to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Right on time. And so I'm just going to call out names for the record, folks who signed up, but we do not see online. Marissa Jean Giacchetti, Gregory Mumji, Madison Tevlin, and Alex Stein. If any of you are on, please let us know. And I apologize also for the lack of the captioning towards the end of the hearing. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that, but yes. Okay. So seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. And I just want to thank you all again for being here and for sharing your morning with us and just really educating us as well. So I appreciate all of you, and we're getting kicked out. So I will see you soon. Thank you.